In our previous video, we looked at the first two elements of organizational structure, work specialization and departmentalization. So now let's look at chain of command. When we talk about chain of command, we're talking about the line of authority from the uppermost person in the organization to the lowest levels. The idea with chain of command is that everyone should have someone they report to. And if everyone has someone they report to, then even the bottom of the organization has a line of authority all the way to the top. So if we draw an organizational structure, we might have an org chart that looks something like this. So here we can see if this is you, then you report to someone, they report to someone. There is a continuous line of authority from the top of the organization to the bottom. And we can see here that we have unity of command. That is, every employee has one direct supervisor. What's difficult in organizations if there's not unity of command? So perhaps you are working on two projects. One project lead is telling you to do one thing, one project lead is telling you to do another. If those conflict, how do you know what to do? Or if you have this boss here, number one, is telling you to do something and their subordinate is telling you something else and they conflict, which one do you do? So we need that continuous line of authority and unity of command, which is person number one tells person number two, and person number two tells you if you're down here on our org chart. Now, when you have chain of command, you have authority. So people have a right inherent in their position. We talked about that term before. What is that? Authority of position. People respect you and do what you say because you have the job title. So authority is that right inherent in your position, in your job title, to tell people what to do. And then there's a responsibility. That is, if you have someone in authority above you, then there's an obligation or expectation that you perform the jobs that have been assigned to you by the person in authority. And then the third piece is that we have accountability. That is, there is some kind of reporting, documentation, something to justify that the work is being done and that those jobs are being reported to the superiors. Now, let's look at, when it comes to that chain of command, let's go back to Fail. So Fail was the one who was talking to us about unity of command. And so we'll bring back the chart from Fail. And so as we look at the unity of command, we have centralized decision-making at the top, and then we have subordinates going down. As you are looking at your organization, you can have functional growth. That is, you are adding more people. So let's say you have shift supervisors, and if we add more shift supervisors, that's functional growth. We're going to be open more, we're going to run more shifts. So when we're adding more employees horizontally on this image, that's functional growth, adding more employees to work at a particular level. Scalar growth is when you are adding more layers to the bureaucracy. So we're adding more supervision. So we're going to add, so let's say that we have an organization where we have, we're producing, let's say we're processing meat at Cargill. So we have the people who are on the floor doing the processing. Maybe they have a shift supervisor and a middle manager and upper manager. If we add a line supervisor in between the workers and the shift supervisor, then we are adding scalar growth. We're adding additional layers to that bureaucracy. So when we're looking at our chain of command, how many layers exist in that chain of command? And are you maintaining with it that continuous line of authority? So everyone reports to someone. When we look at that chain of command, we should also recognize who is line authority and who is staff authority. So some of your managers will be responsible for people who are involved in essential activities, production, sales, anything that makes the product and gets it to the customer. And then we have staff managers. Staff managers are responsible for the people who work in the supporting roles of the organization. So they're there to make sure that those who are in those essential activities can be effective and get their job done. So this would be people in HR and in accounting. They would be a part of the staff. So you can see here on this visual, the solid lines are the line authority, people involved in directly making the good and getting it to the customers. And then we have the staff that are supporting that position. So we can see HR, we can see purchasing in terms of getting the inventory so we can use it, we make our particular good, are a part of those staff. So we have line managers and staff managers depending on where they are in the organization, if it's an essential activity or a supporting activity. As we look at these organizational charts, we're looking at power, and we've been talking about power in previous videos. So when we talk about power, we're talking about the ability to influence decisions. And we talked about how much influence and how to gain influence previously. You can influence people because you have authority of position or authority of leadership. So remember, that authority of leadership is that soft power. That's the ability to change people's opinions, get people to do things because they respect you. And maybe that's because you are one who knows what they're talking about, contributes to the team, and so people respect you. So you have power, you have influence. If you have authority of position, so the title says you have authority, or you have authority of leadership. So that's that soft power. That is where people respect you. And so either way, you can influence people within the organization. So it's important to remember as we look at our power and influence that both continue to exist. So the top here shows the chain of command or org chart. So that would be the authority of position. And then you can see below how you might be influencing people around you in other functional areas of the department that also can lead to power. The last item here on our discussion of chain of command is delegation. So if you have authority to make decisions and tell others what to do, you also have the authority to delegate. So you can assign that authority to someone else. So if we look at our org chart here that we were drawing before, so person number 2 might decide that some of the work that they are responsible for, they are going to give to you, and now you are responsible for. So we delegate. So as we're talking about delegating, if you are following along with us in the Pearson-Revel self-assessments, we are testing your ability to delegate tasks to coworkers and subordinates. So how well do you do at delegating? Well, according to this, I am not a good delegator. So on the top here, we have weak delegator. You want to be down at the bottom. I'm not a good delegator. I am one where it's just easier if I do it myself. So I'm not really good at passing on responsibilities or work to other people. So hopefully you are a better delegator than I am. It's an important role as a manager in order to maintain the ability to complete what can be a very time-consuming job, right? We talked before about how the job of management, right, can be quite overwhelming. You have to take these big projects, turn them into doable chunks, and it can be quite fragmented in terms of the work. So being able to delegate makes a big difference. If you're going to be delegating, you're handing off authority to other people. So the question is how effectively do you empower others and engage others? So if you're going to be handing off the work to a subordinate, are you able to give them what they need in order to do that work and to keep them engaged so they want to do that work? So if you're doing the Pearson-Revel surveys with us, then we'll see here how effective you are at empowering and engaging others. All right, I am right there on the cusp between low ability and normal ability. So again, hopefully you did better than I did here. As we look at our ability to empower others, what we're looking for is, do you provide opportunities for employees to practice their skills? So they have a chance to kind of practice the role before you're handing off all of the responsibility to them. So can they master those skills? Do you act as an example? Do you model for them what kind of decisions and behaviors they're looking for? Do you get people excited? Do you reduce the fear as you hand off tasks to them? So are we arousing positive emotions? Are you providing them the information that they need in order to do the work that you have delegated to them? Are you providing them with the resources that you need in order to do the work? Do you create opportunities for team members to engage each other and interact with each other so that there's a more cohesive unit for projects and work? Do you create confidence? That is, are your employees confident that you'll be there when you need them, when they need you? Because if you're going to delegate responsibility to them, they may need to come back to you and double check. Are they confident that you are there for them and that they can do the job you're asking them? So it's quite likely that you, like me, might have low numbers here. Part of that can be you are in a role right now where you don't do a lot of empowering of others. Maybe you don't currently have subordinates, and so those might be on the lower end simply because of the way you answer them based on the current role that you're in. The last one here is about delegating work, and the way that it looks at delegating work in this particular one is, do you give clear, specific tasks? Do you tell people what you expect from them? And you can see in that scale, I was much higher on that one. So in my role as an instructor, I'm often trying to define tasks. I write up assignments for you. So I'm hopefully clearly defining what's expected of you. And so again, here in terms of this view of delegating, I did a bit better here. So maybe you perceive yourself, because remember, this is how you feel, not necessarily how others feel. So maybe my assignments aren't clearly defined in your view, but in terms of how we feel about ourselves, you may feel like you're stronger at that particular piece, as opposed to the delegating we saw in the previous survey in terms of giving up work to others. This one looks at setting expectations for others. Yeah.